I just wanted to start off by having you introduce yourself and first of all, explain your history of what led you towards sterile processing, um, real quick, you know.
Sure. Um, I have a medical background. I was in medical school for about 3.5 years, bright and early, straight out of high school. There was some prerequisites I had to take. I was in India for about 6 months and then transferred to St. Lucia for about 3 years. I was there. I left there due to some financial issues my parents were dealing with. So after leaving
St.
there,
Lucia in the Caribbean?
Correct.
Beautiful. We have to talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time there so much. It made a big influence on me. Just living near the ocean was one of my biggest inspirations in moving out to California. I was 30 plus years Michigander. Tired of the winters. Anyway, moved out here. My wife got a nursing position. Last 8 years, I've been a stay-at-home father. After coming back from medical school, though, I pursued civil service work. I applied for police departments, did several police examinations at Denver, Las Vegas, and Detroit. After that, I decided to utilize the medical knowledge that I had and went forward with paramedic, EMT paramedic training for about a year or two. I ended up with that. Learned a lot about myself, led quite a few teams in very distressful and traumatic situations. Decided I did not want to be a 5-year burnout, as I noticed a lot of other veteran paramedics were becoming around me. And I left. From there, I worked in a hospital as a patient care tech, telemetry tech for another year or two, and moved on to medical software at a support center for doctors and nurses. I'd say mostly it was password locks and resets and them getting annoyed. Why is this happening to me? And it's like, it's not just you, it's every call I'm getting. But there were also a lot of issues with Epic and Citrix and the hospital software that we dealt with, that the doctors deal with still today. These are all current medical software. Following that, that's when I left when my daughter was born to stay at home and be a father while my wife pursued a nursing education, which brought me to California. Once I got here, last year I started with a surge tech program. Due to the extremity of the pandemic around January, some things became mandated for in-person classes, which I was not comfortable with. So I chose to leave that program and with the hopes of rejoining in the fall. But between that time, I discovered CSS through a number of people, one of them being my manager, where I currently work at now. I was in talks with her for a number of months prior to being hired. And yeah, she sort of helped me kind of direct my focus to discover what ended up being CSS as my course of choice. And after about, I want to say like a month and a half or so of preparation, I prepared for the CRCST and passed that June 3rd and got hired in, my first day was August 2nd. So Mr. Mullen had already had me scheduled to start clinicals in August, and it was supposed to be out in Beverly Hills, but I ended up getting hired in and got my interview done in July. And I was already working at that facility, at the same facility, for about 6 months. So there was a departmental transfer.
Okay, and, before you go on, because you're going to go through, blowing through a bunch of questions. So let's take you back a little bit.
Sure.
When preparing for the exam, first two-part question. First question is, what did you do to prepare to take that certification exam? And then the second question is, how difficult did you find the exam to be?
So what I did to prepare, because I have more of a background in medicine, I didn't have a problem with some of the more basic stuff when it comes to like microbiology or anatomy, or even the physiology of how certain things function. So I was able to skip through a lot of the chapters that, again, I was told that the CRCST does not focus on, and it's true.
Which things did it not focus on that you felt?
Largely the anatomy, which was, I believe, chapter 3.
Yeah.
And then med term, I didn't have too much of a problem with, which was chapter 2. I think I needed to revise a little bit on micro to understand what was the focus of the book when it came to micro. But in terms of preparation, the way I've learned to do tests, or at least standardized tests, was to do lots and lots of questions. For one reason, to understand the kind of content that I was going to be questioned about, and also to kind of understand the phrasing of how questions were going to be put, assuming that they weren't revisionary type of question, because I feel like there's different types of ways to read or learn based on question-based kind of learning. Because is this question exactly how the CRCSD is going to depict it? Or is this more of like a high school standard where it's like, what is this? What is this? Because then the CRCSD does not ask flat out questions like that. It's almost scenario or case-based questions where they expect you to take a few jumps in your understanding of, okay, so you need to know this, this, and this in order to understand the answer for this. So that the questions that I took, if anything, solidified the kind of content or understanding about the material, which prepared me for the CRCSD type of questions. They were not straightforward, exactly, oh, I know this exact question, so I know this exact, it wasn't like that at all. There was still thinking involved. It was not, memorization did not help in that way. But questions, I'd say, mainly helped me. I just did question after question until I felt completely comfortable and in one way, shape, or form bored of seeing the same stuff over. And I was like, yeah, I know this, I know this. And secondly, I definitely skimmed through all the material multiple times. And I say skimmed because reading such dry material and trying to learn every paragraph is not necessary every time you read the material. It's important to understand how to study. So I would say everyone should definitely read the entire chapter, every chapter, at least once. After that, break it down into key points, main ideas, and create outlines. I love creating outlines. So I broke down a 30-page chapter into about 5 pages of outlines. So, and from there, just break it down into parts that you need to remember, you need to know, need to cover. And then as you go on in your process, you have less to review because you definitely need to review. And so you have the largest amount of material first, and then it slows down and it gets small enough to be on index cards, I suppose. But that's how preparation went. When CSD came around, I definitely saw a lot of stuff that I was expecting to see. I saw some stuff that I wasn't expecting to see. There was a little bit more on some of the organizations that I wasn't expecting. I took mine at in Culver City at the Prometric Center there. And actually one other student in, she wasn't in my class, but she was in another one of Mr. Mullen's classes. She said it was almost identical to what I took, and she took it at the same facility. So I don't know if that's always going to be the case. Like I heard Miss Angela say earlier, they make about 9 or 10 different versions of the test. So it's not guaranteed just because someone said, oh, well, there's definitely nothing on this. No, you might get 10 questions on it. You know? So there's no way to say that that's what's going to happen for you. But as far as the outline on the ISHM or HSPA site starting next year, it's pretty straightforward. So, 10% this, 20% this. It was pretty accurate in that way, but you can't guarantee that you're going to be quizzed on, get exact questions on such and such.
Right. So quick question. I know through the band app in the CSS community, you had mentioned to the group certain websites that to go to that had some sample questions in order to what's one of the it was a Quizlet, or what was the
from the site that I took most of the questions from was crcstprep.com. That they have 10 free questions. Otherwise, you have to pay $25 for 500 questions or so, I think they offer. But what I did was I harvested all of those questions and posted them for free in test form at, let me get the spelling right. I'll put it in the chat, I guess. It's quizzes.com. But
So
of
is that
course,
the link that you put in bandquizzes.com/collection/, that
yes.
big long number?
Yeah. Are you going to be able to share that with them, or do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, I posted that Isham
Okay.
collection is what you named it.
Yeah, so that one has all of the CRCSD prep stuff, as well as in the beginning, I was putting like our progress tests in there just for anything extra to test on. But yeah, that has all of the stuff from crcsdprep.com, as well as one test that I managed to put up so far from nimbleprep.com. That site, the questions are about the same. I didn't say anything too special about it, but any extra practice helps. It doesn't hurt. So I'm in the process of harvesting those as well. But
Okay.
yeah,
So let me ask you this. What was the interview you would just to confirm let's talk about the resume. You put your resume together. What format did you use to submit your resume? In other words, did you use the outline that the school had, or did you have your own?
I did have it in some kind of format that I was familiar with, but I did hand it off to you, Mr. Mullen, as well as Mr. Croto, who helped me out. And I think he sent me his version, or you sent me his resume. I forget who supplied me that. And I was able to kind of, I made a little changes, as well as saw the changes that you had made, and it was incredibly concise. And I thought I needed to go into much more detail. I was like, oh, but I have all this and this and this. And then I think it was Mr. Croto who said, like, keep it more concise, keep it more relevant. And for the most part, it all was relevant. I think maybe the tech support stuff was the least relevant. But the most important thing that I think you mentioned to me was mentioning the most recent job history, which was working in the hospital now till present, because I had that huge 8-year gap. But it wasn't a concern for me because, like I said, I was in talks with my manager, who was in the same hospital
Right.
at the time for the transfer. So could it be an issue for other people? It might be, to have a huge gap. Just try to keep it as close as possible and relevant, I would say.
Well, when you at the hospital that you're at, because how long have you been in your current role? And then the question that should come before that would be, what was the interview like? What kind of questions did they ask you? So first of all, when did you start
My
in
start date
your
was
current?
August 2nd,
Okay,
in as an instrument technician.
so freshly in. You've completed your first week. That's
5 days,
awesome.
yes, not
Yeah.
even 7, but yes.
So, what kind of questions did popped up during the interview process?
First off, I didn't realize it until later, but the hiring manager who hired me, has never really held that role. So she was kind of unfamiliar with the kind of knowledge I was supposed to have. So most of everything I said was, I mean, not to my own horror, but it was pretty impressive. She was just like, "Oh wow, okay." But the kind of questions I was asked, she sort of pulled in her lead and had her lead ask me a lot of stuff. Uh, her her first question was asking me, "What do you know about sterilizers?" And I was like, well, and I started describing the makeup of it. I was like, they have a jacket, and the jacket prevents condensation and it retains the heat. And I was like, you want to make sure that the gaskets are intact. And I went into more detail than I think, she wasn't expecting to hire an engineer for the sterilizer, but she
So,
was
in
like,
other words, you took the steam sterilization section of the book and memorized it.
I didn't realize how
We
much I was
started
going to be
teaching the
called.
chapter.
Yeah, yeah. So my lecture started there and ended pretty abruptly. She was like, "Oh, okay, okay." She called in her lead tech, and the lead tech asked some more relevant questions where he said, "Okay, well, we bring in some stuff from pickups. What do we do now?" So I started with decon. So I was like, okay, well, first, before pickup, we're going to make sure things are pre-cleaned with either enzymatic cleaners or at least a moistened towel. And from there, I began to bore them about bringing it safely, making sure we empty fluids, no sharps and disposables are tossed away, no linens are brought with us, and then we bring it there. Speeding up, getting to decon, we're sorting things, making sure things are sets try to stay as together as possible. And the sink, 3 sinks. So the first sink is going to be anywhere from 80 to 110 temperature. We don't want to exceed 140 to damage the enzymatics that are in the detergents, to make sure they're still it's still efficacious, or it's still capable of being using. Oh my gosh, of being used anyway.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't deactivate it.
right, yeah, so yes, that's the word I was looking for. So yeah, so I went in detail about that, and from there to the ultrasonics, to the washer disinfector, to the prep and pack, to the sterilizer, and then to storage. And I mentioned some temperatures here and there, and she was like, "Is that it?" And I was like, "Oh no, did I forget something in the process?" And she's like, "No, no, no, I just want to know if you were done." It took me about like 2 minutes. I was trying to bore her with as much detail as possible so she would tell me to shut up, but she didn't. So I just kept on going. And then she was like, you've never been in the back? And I was like, no, I thought that was going to be a huge thing. I was like, no, I have no hands-on training. And she's like, that's amazing. You have some kind of uncanny ability to understand what's going on back there, and you've never even stepped foot in there. And I was like, oh, okay. It was an impressive thing that I did. I was like, it's like, oh no.
You get a chance to use the script that the school provides as far as the 4 sections, talking about decontamination, prep assembly, sterilization, and case picking. Were you able to use that material?
Yeah, Mr. Croto actually suggested that it was actually part of his story that inspired me, because he said that that was pretty much what they asked him to go from beginning to end. What do you know? And so he impressed them so much that he ended up getting hired. And so that was my goal. I was like, I want to get hired and do my 400 paid. So I made sure I learned as much boring detail about every step of the way so that I could impress them. But that was what I was kind of going along the lines. I had already said I had no hands-on training. And so that was kind of, she was like, oh, I didn't know that. So she wasn't aware of where I was in the process of certification or as a student. And so at that point in the interview, she felt like she was making a mistake. Oh, maybe this was too soon or something. So I just explained again. I was like, no, my 400 hours is to retain my certification, but I am certified as of June 3rd. And so I was like, ask me anything. I was like, ask me, I'll answer it. And I was like, I'm very eager to learn. Just because I have book knowledge does not mean I am not going to learn. I'm here to learn everything. Everyone here is above me. I have no problem with that. I'm humble. I will learn whatever you need me to learn.
Okay. And then most interviews, they'll also ask certain personal questions. In other words, more personality type questions to get a feel for your personality, to see if you're a good fit for the department. Did they happen to ask any of those types of questions?
In terms of like, oh, you have a conflict with anything, what do you do? Like conflict
Right.
resolution. I didn't get a lot of that. I was expecting some of that too, because there was a number of videos that I think Mr. Croto had suggested from that Boston. I forget, Boston Institute. That guy
Boston
did.
Scientific thing guy. Yeah. The
Yeah,
guy
that
with
guy
the
has an
beard.
amazing video. I really like.
Yeah.
I've seen it a couple times because like, oh, the 3 words to describe yourself. It's a really good. I highly recommend that before going to any interview, but especially still processing what he directs it towards. But no, I didn't get anything too specific. She didn't do anything. Why should I hire you, or why are you the best candidate? I really think I was the only one applying for it at the time. I don't think I was in competition with anyone else. But no, I didn't get to brag too much else about myself in any other way, which makes me uncomfortable anyway. So I was kind of happy not to.
Okay. And so you're currently working, you just completed your the first 5 days, right? So I know you had to go through orientation probably again. Did you have to go through orientation? Because you're already an employee there.
In terms of like
Like, you know how they have a new
general,
employee and orientation?
no, yeah, I didn't have to do
Okay.
all that.
So you just went straight into the department. So
Yeah.
describe to us your first week so far.
So, well, my first day, I showed up. I was, I guess, unnecessarily early because nobody knew I was coming. Nobody expected me at all. I just kind of showed up, and she's like, "Oh, you're early." And I was like, "I thought I was supposed to be early. I don't know." So I showed up. I didn't have my badge set up, so I couldn't get into decon. So she gave me some other kind of badge, get in, and then there's no scrubs. So they had to walk me out, show me where all the scrubs are hidden. I got in, and the guy who I was shadowing wasn't there. So the actual more direct manager to the department was there, and she's like, "What do you want to do?" I was just like, I don't know. What do you want me to do? So I just like, before she continued, I was just like, I want to learn everything. Throw me wherever you need me. Throw me in the deep end. I'm absolutely fine with learning on my own as long as you guys are okay with my questions. So she was like, great. So she threw me in assembly. She's like, here's a count sheet. Go at it. So I had a major tray that I started off with. And thanks to Surge Tech, my Surge Tech experience, I did know uh, I think most of those instruments. It helped me out with at least 60% of the instruments that I've covered. There's a lot of smaller ones and similar ones in the craniotomy trays and robotic miners that I've never seen before. But I was able to do a lot with the major trays, the long instrument trays. There was a whole slew of them that I was very familiar with. It did take me a little while to kind of understand the process because um, understanding, the count sheet, everything has to be in an order, how the stringers play, setting up your field. Um, eventually the guy who I was supposed to shadow came in and he kind of helped me with more of a structured process. But prior to that, I was just kind of like playing in the sand by myself. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was just wide-eyed, bushy-tailed in there, enjoying myself while everybody else, it was a very relaxed environment, and people were willing to answer my questions. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I won't ever forget my first day. That was that was a lot of fun. The days following, I remained in prep and pack because of some COVID issues. We had a low census on cases, so there was one day where we only had about 5 trays, and so the guy who I was shadowing said, "Why don't you just do these from beginning to end?" So we went and picked up. We went into decon. I cleaned all of them, ran them through the ultrasonics as necessary, and went through the washer disinfector. And then from there came out and did the assembly when they were done, did the packing, and then he showed me where they all went. And that pretty much took me the whole day. Everyone was just watching me, giving me pointers the whole time. So that was a really, really cool day because it was super slow and everyone was just focused on me. It was a little nerve-wracking, but I learned a lot. The following days, up until the Friday, which was my last day today, I continue again on my 6th. I was still in prep and pack. And actually, I asked if I could be kept there because I just wanted to see as many different trays as possible. Anytime there was a new tray, I said, oh, can I do that one? And at one point they were hesitant because they were starting to get backed up and they didn't have time for me to just like, oogle and at all the instruments like, ooh, what's this? And like, oh, okay. I'm trying to figure out how a surgeon uses it. That's not my job. I was just very interested in taking all the time I had in this first week. But yeah, they let me do, like I said, the craniotomy tray, the Arthrex tray, which has like all this little puzzle pieces where it's supposed to go. So a lot of different types of stuff, some specialty doctor trays, um, learning that certain doctors like this instrument as opposed to this instrument, and reading all the little notes, do not substitute this with this. And then people always checking my trays afterwards and learning to put the chemical indicators in and whatnot. But yeah,
Very good.
that was my last 5 days.
Now,
So a very supportive
yeah.
Environment. It sounds like maybe a smaller hospital. Are you at a surgery center or a hospital?
It is a hospital. It's currently, as of the last 2 years, Cedars-Sinai has become a partner with it, and they are building I don't know, an accessory facility, but it's on campus, another building there in the next 3 years or something. It's still in construction there, but it's going to be bigger. And the manager had already showed me the blueprints and like where they're putting the new sterile sterile processing area. It's all pretty exciting what's going to happen there.
So it sounds like you were in a very supportive environment. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone was very nice. There's no high school drama. I'm definitely too old for that. But yeah, the manager, my more direct manager, everyone is very nice, very kind, very willing to help, and very patient with me. So yeah, I'm thankful for that.
So real quick, going back to like you know, things like in your resume, and I know that you went to had schooling with medical background, and you were doing would you say like paramedic type work and stuff, but you also had other things like IT. It sounded like you had like an IT background there as well, helping people with Epic and stuff. So what do you say to somebody as far as how do you, because I know there's definitely skills that you can have in another job that although they're not sterile processing related, they are transferable skills, such as customer service,
Yes.
being able to deal with the customer's complaints and stuff like that. So did you have any questions at all regarding where you didn't necessarily have that type of experience within the sterile processing, of course, because you just started, but that you were able to uh did they ask you any situational questions of, like you said, how do you deal with somebody who's difficult or something like that, where you were able to use something in your past to translate it into like a sterile processing situation?
I wasn't asked anything directly like that, but for any advice regarding that, I would say understand what the position requires. They're not asking for you to have a medical background. They're asking for you to be teachable. They're asking for you to be trainable. They want to make sure you are an ethical person. They want to make sure they can work with you and that you're willing to work with different individuals. Um, I would say that's the core of it. Beyond that, you can learn anything. You can be taught anything if you're willing to undergo that stress. I mean, you have to know, you have to be, having any kind of experience in which you have been in some kind of learning capacity or some kind of learning environment always helps to show them that, hey, this person spent this much time learning this. They're probably very willing to do this again. If you don't have direct relevant medical background, they might just want to know that, hey, this is a different field. Are you sure you're up to this? So it's, I'm sure all of you have heard this before. It's a new language. It's always a new language. Any field you go in, whether you're learning the words, new words or medical terminology or whatever the terminology, it's always a new language. It's some new body mechanics to learn, some new muscle mind coordination, understanding what's required of you. It's all a new language. It's a new career, but it's nothing to be afraid of. So going forward with it, they just want to know that you're excited, you want more from this, and that you're sure about what you want. I would say the one thing that I mentioned it to you, Mr. Mullen, towards the end, she pulled out the pay scale because the union had set forth already the pay that's for my position. And she started to point out other areas in the hospital that pay more that I may also be qualified for. She's like, oh, an echo tech, they make this much. I mean, are you sure you're okay with? I was just like, this one was like, oh, I mean, what are you telling me? Like, are you telling me that I'm not qualified for this and I should go for this? So I was just sticking to my guns and I was just like, no, I just really have a passion for this. And for some reason, shape or form, I discovered this field and there's definitely been a calling to this. And I really want to move forward with this, but thank you. And she was like, okay, well, just letting you know this is here. So I don't know if that was one of those tactics during the interview.
Right. I remember talking to you,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's quite possible that it was a test
yeah,
because they want to make sure that you're serious. Some managers are, when they see somebody with other experience, are wanting to gauge to make sure, okay, you're not trying to get your foot in the door
mm,
with us here so that you can move on to there. And
right.
so, to that end, just remember, any of the students that are online right now, remember to focus in on the position that you've applied for, that you're interviewing for, and stay focused to that. And you know, you might say something that, well, we'll see what where my career leads me 5 to 10 years from now, but right now I'm solely focused on sterile processing. So you know, that's, it's quite possible they can test you, you know, kind of, because remember, you're always from the time you walk in until you walk out and you're in your car on your way, you are in the interview. You don't know who so when you walk in the hospital, you don't know if like Raj could have walked up to the lead not knowing that he was engaging with the lead in the lobby, or let's say in the cafeteria before, you know, and had an interaction that could have been positive or negative, and then shows up at the interview and then, oh, there she is or he is. So remember, when you step on property, you are in the interview. So the professionalism, it's best to be professional from start to finish at all times, even when you're at a grocery store. You know, it's good practice for life, period. So Raj, what I'm going to do right now is I want to pass it on and ask some of the I'm wondering if any of the students here have any questions of their own, because, you know, we kind of, my background was knowing where you were coming from, so it's kind of like a guided question, but doesn't necessarily, may not answer the questions that they might have. So whether it is Zara or Ashley or something, you know, or any Casey, Angela, Imelda, any one of you, you know, and if there's somebody I didn't mention, feel free to ask Raj a question at this point.
No, thank you.
So anybody have a question right now?
Guys,
Mr. Pernell has a question.
well, I was going to say, this is a rare opportunity for you guys as students to have someone that has gone through the same exact process, the same exact lectures that you've been through. No question is a stupid question. Take advantage of this opportunity. And let's go ahead, starting with Angela. Let's ask Rod some good questions and, you know, have some good give and take here. Go ahead, Angela.
Yes, Raj, first I want to say thank you for taking time out to speak to us Texans. And it's not cold here. I noticed everybody's got on lots of sleeves. It's triple digits here, but since we're in class, I wanted to know if in your plans that you will continue to go from the CRCST into the CIS. Do you plan to do that in this 6-month to 1-year period? And if so, do you feel like, since you're now navigating through the actual process hands-on, if that's accelerating the learning experience for you?
Yeah, and first off, you guys are very welcome. I'm more than happy to help out anybody that has questions, as I'm very open in the study groups as well in the band app. Whoever wants to message me about anything, anytime. Even if you guys think of a question after this, you know, feel free to either contact Mr. Mullen or however. As far as the future degrees, yes, I plan on acquiring all degrees available, as many letters as I can to add to my name. It's not long enough. The manager, my director, she's the director of surgical services. She apparently holds the current title as the longest string of letters following her name. She actually got an award for that reason. She showed it to me in the interview. She's like, I have this for all these, like, she has like some umpteen different letters after her name, some of which includes MBA and some other ones that are not directly sterile related. But yeah, so I do, and I certainly do believe the training now that I'm getting on the job is, of course, helping me with furthering my education, because it's anything you get in the field, any kind of in-person education you get, you have to see any experience that you have in life as education. It's not just about, am I learning? You're always learning. You're always learning about yourself, your environment, in your workplace. Everything is a learning experience. I think the CIS, the first, oh boy, someone just popped up their credentials over there on the screen. Mr. Mullen's flashing his muscles over there. Yeah, I think 6 months is the minimum, but for before you can start to either apply or take the CIS. If I'm mistaken, anyone can correct me. That's fine. But I'm not in a rush. I definitely, as far as the one thing I can compare myself to is like when I was more of a video gamer, I was the guy who wanted to get every achievement, every little secret and everything on every level before I went to everything else. And that's still a part of me in other aspects of my life. So I definitely want to master where I'm at so that I am kind of a source of knowledge for those around me, so I can help or I can lead my team in that way. So I definitely want to master where I'm at before I feel comfortable enough to go forward with more degrees. Now, if the CIS is something that I will help me further the mastery of this, I will definitely be doing that sooner than later. But from what I'm understanding, I think it's a minimum 6 months. So
Yeah.
I'll be doing my research somewhere around that time frame into that. And I've been talking with Mr. Mullen, like, what should I look at next? Where should I go next? And also Mr. Croto, I've been talking to more about what should I be seeking in terms of advancement, whether in my department or degrees as well. Anything, what would help? So yeah, thank you for asking.
I had a real quick question, Raj.
Sure.
In terms of leadership within the sterile processing department, because Harry and I not only pride ourselves on training our guys to be well-equipped sterile processing technicians, but we also feel like we're training future leaders in the field. And we want to see each and every one of our students advance into leadership roles within the discipline. Have you given any thought to leadership? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I guess it kind of melts into what I was saying before, but I'm not trying to push myself too hard. I'm trying to remain humble because book knowledge is not enough. No matter how many of these chapters and paragraphs you memorize and all the temperatures, it doesn't mean squat if you don't know the process, if you don't know how to work with people, if you don't understand that you need your team. You can't run the decon and then run over to prep and pack, go back and forth. You can't run around like that. That's no way to make sure instruments are available. And in the process, you drop instruments here and there. Well, you're going to have issues. You need your team. You need to understand that a leader knows when to follow. Leaders lead, but they understand the requirements of a team. They understand everybody's job. They know everybody's job. They understand what's required. So am I looking forward to that? Absolutely, 110%. I'm so getting prepared every day, every moment I am there. I'm looking and learning all around me. Where does this department need leadership? Where do we need support? What more can I learn to improve what's going on already? Because it's not enough to poke at problems, say, that's not being done, that's not being done. If you find a problem, have a solution. Give them options. Say, hey, that's not what I learned. Could we do this instead? Because I think this is a better idea. And hopefully you're not met with, oh, what do you know? You're new here. So far I haven't met anyone like that. But you might run into characters that I haven't, who will push back. And you don't need to be confrontational about it. Express what you know. And if you are met with an ethical dilemma like that, then you can always bring it up with management and say, hey, you know what? I think this is the best way to go about it. It doesn't seem to be a practice that you guys employ. And things like that will kind of keep you in the mind of leadership and say, hey, that guy had a good idea, or that girl came up with that idea. I didn't notice that was going on, because sometimes the managers aren't always there. They'll just leave things in charge of the lead tech. Manager is not always there on every weekend or on every shift. They may only be there during the busiest shift and let their leads take over. And so some leads get that in their head a bit and think that they're the chief of everything. But trying to come back to the point, sorry if I digressed a little bit. But no, yes, I'm personally absolutely seeking to eventually take on a leadership role in title, but most importantly, in the minds of my fellow coworkers, my teammates, because I want to be dependable. I want them to know I'm responsible and ethical.
And just to let the other students know, I've had a past student that in a very small facility that they did not have clinical coordinators like the larger hospitals had. They did not have, they had just your technicians, your lead, your supervisor, and manager, and that was it. They didn't have an educator. They didn't have what Purnell and I would call a clinical coordinator, which is somebody who specializes in, let's say, orthopedic or surgery, in gynecology surgery and such. And because of that, they focused in on, I had a student who basically created a position for himself by becoming that content expert, to be that go-to person that if you had a question, even though, and that person was able to do it with probably within a year to 16 months of being on the job, because he did the research as to what is it that he needed to know. And so he started doing the role until the facility realized, the OR and the sterile processing department realized they needed that role. And then he was a natural fit. So they gave it to him, even though he was very fairly new in the field and stuff. So it all depends on your goals, what your drive is, what your focus is and stuff. You can literally sometimes create your own opportunity within a department and stuff. So keep open to that, that prospect. So I'm going to pick on, let's see here. Ashley, did you have any questions for Raj?
Hear me sending out I have question vibes? Because I was probably sending them your way. Okay, so I have this thing where my anxiety is through the roof until I get there. And it's like, even like with our final exam, right? I had been studying, I had like scrambled to get all this information and get prepared, and kind of last minute Lisa. What sort of suggestions would you give for somebody who's not necessarily good with making outlines to prepare for the test, or who retains the knowledge, as they're reading it? Like you said, you went through the chapters one time and then you skimmed, but the outline thing has never really been my strong point. This is coming from somebody who's taken like English 101 a few times and I've always kind of lacked in those areas. Do you have any sorts of suggestions for that, just to kind of help build that confidence when it comes to making sure that you know what you think you know?
Yeah, that is definitely something that I'm learning as I'm helping to not tutor, but in my study groups and stuff. I'm trying to understand that who studies in different ways and which way is the best way to approach a student, because like you said, outlines don't always work. Notes don't. I was not a note taker in school. I hated taking notes. I love just watching the lecture, and I think I'm a mouth watcher too when someone is talking to me, because I noticed it's harder to remember people's faces now that everyone's wearing a mask. It's like, oh, that looks like, and it almost makes me sound racist when I say it sometimes. I was like, oh, you look just like that other person. I'm like, oh, I should need to shut up. But it's not like that. I noticed that I just watch, I pay attention to people's mouths and the way they talk, and I remember funny things they'll say. So I learn differently than you do, and you probably learn differently than the next person you know. It's very, very important as a student, a lifetime student, to understand what is the best way to get knowledge to stick to you. Like I said, whether it's notes, whether it's skimming, whether it's index cards, whether it's questions, whether it's charts or diagrams, depending on the subject. I highly recommend you explore all the avenues, even if note taking is not your thing. I noticed that when I do try at taking notes or creating outlines, that work and that effort in creating the words, creating a sentence, that work that it takes will stick in your head. It is more work, it is difficult, but I'm telling you and this is not to push that on you, I'm not saying, but seeing 30 pages of a chapter after you're done being—
It's daunting.
It's incredibly daunting. I'm creating an unofficial audiobook of the entire book, of the whole central service book, and posting it on YouTube for free, hoping no one sues me, but I'm not monetizing it. I'm not making money off of it. But it is, some of these I didn't realize after I'm reading through it a second, I was like, God, this is so long, it's taking forever. So, but seeing that 30 pages, when you do the outline, breaking it down into just 3 pages of notes, it's so uplifting, because when you realize these chapters have a lot of fluff. And what I mean by that is, to get one point across, it'll take about half a page. You don't need all the information on that page, but because you're taking this book, it's a technical manual. So for you to understand one concept, they need to teach you this concept and this concept and this concept. And by the time you get to the bottom, oh, I get it. That's all you wanted to tell me? It's like, someone who tells you a long drawn out story just to explain that one thing that happened at the end of the day. So when you go through, and if you can try to do outlines, or if you ever want to join me in a study group, if Mr. Mullen wants to give the information, or I'll tell you.
I'll post it.
I'll show you how I do it, because I type it out. I don't like writing, first of all. Writing is just, I feel like a caveman doing writing. Does anybody write anymore? I don't know. But we type it out. I show how to create the outlines, subject matter, line by line. And we're not writing everything in the book. So like I said, I'll make about like 4 or 5 points off of 1 page. And we haven't even completed 1 page. And so now we're like 2-3 pages fits on 1 page. And then as we go forward, that's just 1 time. The next time you need to review it, we cut it down, because we're like, do we need to really keep saying check IFU over and over? No, that takes about half the page, all these check IFUs. So as we go over and revise, these outlines get even shorter. So you'll find that in time, something will work. I think the first time I ever saw outlines and I hated them was in 6th grade. My science teacher showed how to do outlines. I was like, oh, that's so boring. It's terrible. And like I said, I've never been a fan of notes. But if not direct notes, if there is subject matter that involves charts are very good too, because they arrange information in a way that can be seen in columns and rows, and it's very concise. Pictures, sometimes you can find diagrams and pictures on lines, whether it's explaining the chain of infection. You can see a chart of it. Sometimes people grasp things better. I'm actually studying right now whether visual learning is an actual thing. I'm starting to think that it's not. But it's just that how you absorb information is different than from other people. But number one, the main thing when learning anything, you have to be interested. If you are not interested, you won't be focused. If you're not focused, nothing will be retained. So going into this, don't do it because you feel you have to. Don't feel out of an obligation. I paid this much money. Do it because you have an interest in the field. Do it because you have a love for the field. Do it when you have energy. Don't wait till the end of the day and put it off to like, it's about before bed, I need to squeeze in 20 pages to read. That's a terrible time to do it, because you're thinking about sleep. Sleep. I gotta finish before sleep. That stress is not going to help. Another, just the last note, I'd say, put yourself in the same mindset that you can be during a test. If it takes you to meditate, to calm yourself down, because anxiety will take you over. It'll take you in some other direction that you don't want to be. It is not your friend. I know people say like, oh, I work best when I have, when I'm working on a deadline. That's different, because if you think about what that person has said is, they're focused when they have a deadline. They're focused when it gets to that point. They're not saying, oh, I'm so anxiety ridden that that's how I work best. No, no, no. That's not what they look like at that moment. If you truly understand yourself, you'll learn that, oh, when I have a deadline, I feel more focused, and I'm trying to do less multitasking. And your interest is very focused on that, getting that task done. So know yourself. Make sure you're interested in the subject you're learning. Make sure you have your full focus. Eat, get a snack, but feel that you are in the progress of being prepared. You're going to take your CRCST. I think that's what you guys were talking about before with the application. That's where you're at right now. So try different things. So you have outlines, you have images, you have charts, you have other kinds of review material, you have flashcards. Definitely go over all the definitions. Definitions will be a basis for a lot of the questions, because you need to understand concepts in order to fully understand the case type of scenario questions they ask, like cavitation. So you need to understand what cavitation is in order to understand why the ultrasonics are useful. There will be a little handful of questions where like, what is this? What is it? Very, very few. I was excited to get one question about angstrom. And yeah, be very positive, be happy, be excited. You're going somewhere, and everything you do, every time you read something, every time you study something, it is a step in the direction that you want to go. So it's hard to say don't be anxious, but be positive. Anxiety is excitement. Anxiety is excitement, and how you direct that anxiety is telling you where you're going to go. So in terms of how to study, you have to kind of explore different ways, different routes, but sometimes you got to push yourself in ways that maybe are a little different or uncomfortable. Try typing. And like I said, join me, we'll do outlining together, and maybe you'll find out that, hey, this is a lot less work than I thought.
Yeah, Raj has created on the WhatsApp group, and it's a WhatsApp or chat.whatsapp.com, and I have the link in the chat box. So feel free to click on that to join him there. That's the avenue. And to just to kind of add to what Raj has been saying is that having a positive mindset or think positive is very important. One of the things when I was really seriously interested in making sure that I passed a certain exam or something like that, I always go in with positive affirmations, and I will go through this material and I will retain it. I think positively to set my mind because, I tell people your mind, your brain is actually a very stupid organ, and it's very easy to trick in the fact that your brain wants you to be correct. It does not think a negative or positive. It thinks everything's positive. So if you are in a mindset of, I can't do this, and then it will trip you up so that you don't do it. And then when you're upset, your mind will be like, well, what are you upset for? I gave you the results you wanted. Your brain, your people are actually very intelligent. You just tell your brain, I'm going to pass this. I'm going to absorb this information. And your brain will be like, okay. And then it will structure itself to make sure that you absorb as much as you possibly can, because again, your brain always wants a positive outcome for you. And if you're thinking negative, your brain thinks when it comes out, well, that was a positive result for your brain, because it's like, well, that's what you wanted, and that's what I gave you. So that's a simplistic way of putting it.
For sure. I'm definitely, I try to keep a positive mindset. Of course, most times I am usually the more optimistic person in my circles. So I do practice, of course, speaking things into existence, positive speaking, trying to make sure I'm looking at the bright side of most things. But there are just moments like I said I was nervous about my final exam, and I think maybe I got like 9 questions wrong. And so I was pushing and preparing, and turns out I was really nervous about nothing. But I was for sure nervous hitting that submit button, like, okay, let me double check this answer. Let me double check this answer, just to be sure that I kind of built some more confidence within myself and within what I knew, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I know with this test, just like with our final exam, we don't really get a redo. So the pressure is on.
So remember this, Ashley. Ashley, remember this. We really put the pressure on you with the final exam. 175 questions. Other schools give their students 3 hours to take that exam. We don't. We only give you the 2 hours because I want you to be under pressure when you take the final. Because if you can go through and pass that final in 2 hours, just think of how much easier it's going to be when you only have 150 questions. But Isham does give you the full 3 hours to take that exam. So that pressure is then on, is not there for you. So
Understood.
the fact that you said you got 8 wrong, phenomenal, so one of the things that, as Raj was talking about, the different types of ways to study and or preparing for interviews and stuff. So first of all, when he was talking about the interview process, there is a link in the chat box. You click on it called Interview Skills, and it'll take you to the Dropbox, schools Dropbox, so you can download that file. And then there's another one, the flashcards. You definitely want to be studying those flashcards, because those flashcards, you'll see certain questions are created from, that those flashcards will help you with and such. So, and not to cut Ashley off, but I see that Casey, you had your hand up in your picture there. So.
Hi, yeah, I just had one quick question because I'm a little nervous about like the whole COVID part. How do you feel going back to work during a pandemic and in this field?
That's for me, right?
Yeah.
So your best defense in most any situation is knowledge. You have to know and understand your enemy. In this case, I'm saying enemy. You have to know a lot of things in different situations, not necessarily when you're not in battle. But COVID is the enemy. Understand how it is transmissible, how you could come in contact with it in your workplace, and doing your best to avoid it. If going back to work is what you want to do, then there's nothing that needs to stop you. If you're going to work in a hospital, the hospital is taking its own precautions in order to protect its staff and doctors and surgeons. And I mean, they can't afford to make mistakes like that. So that is something that you shouldn't be afraid of. On top of that, nobody's stopping you from wearing, a double mask plus a cloth mask plus a face shield. Like maybe it looks silly, but if you feel that you need to wear it to protect yourself, fine. I mean, nobody's going to step in your way and say, hey, that looks bad or something. It's your personal health and safety you have to look after. In regards to fear going back, like I said, understand what you're dealing with, understand why is there a pandemic? Why are we having such a high transmission rates? Why are so many people going to the hospital? And follow the practices that are necessary to avoid it. Hand washing. In regards to directly our position, we don't take scrubs home. The scrubs are provided there. We leave them there. Don't wear your scrubs home. Don't bring your own scrubs in to go wash at home. Wear different shoes if you like, because everything you touch in that hospital potentially carries a number of diseases, COVID aside. I mean, how many different things are we coming in contact in the hospital that we have no idea? You pick something off the ground, now it's on your hands, now it's on the instrument. You wash the instrument in the disinfector. Did you wash your hands? You're then going to go back to your field and start assembling again. So there's, at every step of the way, everything you do, is a chance that you are going to be contaminated. And that's not to drive you insane. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, that's everywhere. But germs are everywhere. And we are in sterile processing. We're hoping to process these things in a sterile manner. So knowing how to protect yourself is the best way to prevent that anxiety from taking you over or fear from developing, because you just need to know better than the next person, basically, because not everyone is capable of the kind of access that you may have to that kind of education. So the more you learn, also, the better everyone else will be around you, because you can also share that knowledge and information to your loved ones and teammates. Maybe they're not as careful as you, whatever department you go into and work with. But am I personally scared? No, I'm not scared, but I'm always cautious. It's always important to be cautious of wherever you go, whether it's a grocery store or at work too. In the beginning, when I mentioned that I left my search tech program because of the mandate, there was a lot of push from that. I won't mention any schools, the actual school name, but they were demanding I show up. Otherwise, they were going to offer no refund, no credits for classes completed. So I felt really backed into a corner, as well as my kids haven't been vaccinated. And my wife was the only breadwinner at the time. So I wasn't earning at all. So I was like, I can't take that risk. And these were all younger kids. And I've already heard with the study group, all the kind of activities they were doing with and without masks. And I was like, no, I don't want to be around them. So as much as it hurt, I had to drop that course for the sake of my own health and the sake of my family as well. That was at a time, the reason I bring that up, sorry, that was at a time when things weren't very well established in a lot of hospitals and clinics. People were still kind of struggling to catch up with the pandemic. And now I feel we're at a point where hospitals are beginning to understand the kind of mandates that are necessary, regardless of your political issues with Newsom or whoever is in charge of the government. The hospitals know what to do. They know better than anyone else the kind of restrictions and mandates they need to have. Even when things get removed, the hospitals know, it's like, hey, we're not taking a risk. Keep your mask on. We got messages like that in our emails saying, we know that publicly this has been announced, but we still require masks in our facility. So minimally. And and as soon as patients like that show up, we're told, we're like, hey, there has been a COVID case. This is being reduced. We're removing the elective cases for today until things have settled down. So you have to have trust in your workplace. You have to have trust in your colleagues. Not blind, don't have blind faith, but understand what they're doing to keep you safe and to take care of you. You're a worker. I mean, they're paying us to work there. They don't want us sitting at home collecting some unemployment check, or they're taking money for them. So they need you to work. They want you in 100% health. Be cautious, but don't be afraid.
Yeah, one of the things, Casey, is you have not to scare everyone here. The most dangerous place in the hospital is sterile processing, in the fact that we have all this biohazardous materials, the chemicals that come into our department, but the staff, if you've got a really good manager and you've got a really good team, are also highly educated in knowing how, making sure that they're wearing the personal protective equipment, doing proper hand hygiene. And trust me, in my 30 years, I almost got to the point where I was very tired of hearing them saying hand hygiene, hand hygiene, hand hygiene. But at the end of every session I had with cohort B and every class I teach, the last thing I say is, everybody stay safe and don't forget, wash your hands, because, it's just to get that concept. Even though I got tired of hearing it all the time, that's one of the messages I put out there. You have to be educated. You have to be cautious, like Raj says, but even though sterile processing is probably the most dangerous place you could probably be, again, I've been in this field for 33 years, knock on my wooden desk. I've never contracted anything. I've had near, close, near misses when it comes to exposures, and have not in 33 years have not gotten sick. Even with COVID, I didn't get sick at work. I got sick because, a family member was exposed to somebody and then they brought it into the house that way. Hospitals do a tremendous job in trying, trust me, they want to protect the customer. They want to protect the patients, but they can't do that unless they protect the staff first. So they're highly motivated in making sure that the staff members are protected as best as they possibly can be. So there have been staff members throughout the United States, throughout the world in the medical field that have contracted COVID. But I would bet my life on the fact that if you look at the numbers of exposures and the people who have gotten sick and been adversely affected overall worldwide compares to those who've gotten sick within the hospital, I bet you the transmission rate was much less in the hospital because we naturally knew about, especially once we got our ducks in a row, we know about preventing cross-contamination and exposures and stuff. That's what we do on a daily basis. Now, even though sterile processing, and I'll turn it over to Purnell real quick, but even though sterile processing can be the most dangerous place, we're also probably the most secure place in the fact that we do not have tremendous amount of traffic of people from the outside the department coming in. We're a close-knit thing. We primarily deal with the operating room, which has the same conditions as we do as far as protecting the staff. And you have your team members, the sterile processing techs, who are delivering equipment, but they go up to an area, they have their face mask on. And what they're doing is then they drop the equipment off and they get out of that patient care area and they're back in their secluded, ecosystem. Kind of think of it as an ecosystem within sterile processing. So working in sterile processing actually affords you a certain amount of protection, because what are we dealing with all the time? We're dealing with chemicals and disinfectants all the time. So even if COVID comes in and lands on a surface, well, we're constantly wiping down surfaces. We're constantly wiping down and cleaning equipment and washing them in order to destroy those microorganisms and stuff, and the viruses and stuff. So good question.
Yeah, and that's what I figured with all the air exchanges and the PPE that we would be okay. I was just nervous because I've been working from home, and prior to that I was a stay-at-home mom and my son is considered high risk. So I'm just, a little nervous, but I'm more excited than anything.
So because your son is a high risk, I would get in the habit once you get a job is making sure that you have a routine that perhaps, I don't know if you have, if you're in a 2-story, 1-story, but the first thing you do, again, like Raj says, we don't bring scrubs home. We make sure that we have a clean set of shoes, clothing. And then when you do come in to the household, make sure that your current clothes, because who knows what you've been exposed to from the hospital during your trip back home, put that into the laundry, make sure it gets washed, go immediately before you go to your child, go take a shower. You know what I'm saying? Wash down. And if you're myself, if I had a child that was, like your child is in a situation where they can be exposed and be affected, Hibiclens, you go to CVS pharmacy or one of these, these local drugstore chains, get the Hibiclens. So when you come home, take a regular shower, then put Hibiclens, which is a disinfectant, a topical disinfectant, that soap that you wash yourself with and then rinse yourself off. And, do that once a week. I wouldn't do Hibiclens every day because there's a toxicity level that can be established with it, but at least once a week, do that. And then bleach spray in your shower. Make sure then afterwards you're split, so there's definite things you can do in order to protect your child who's high risk. and stuff, and protect your household and stuff. So,
Okay, thank you for that.
and Pernell, you had something that you wanted to say.
Well, I was just going to say, all very excellent points and great questions. Just going to remind folks that, remember, hospitals are organized around the principle of universal precautions. So although COVID is something new on the scene, hospitals have been dealing with this kind of thing to some extent forever. We know how to isolate people. Once we identify how things are transmitted, we understand how to block that transmission. So in fact, hospitals are pretty safe. And Harry was right. The sterile processing area or the CS area can be very dangerous in theory, which is why we have to be armed with some very basic medical knowledge. And it all starts, as you've learned to some degree in this course, with universal precautions. We treat everything and every situation as though it's contagious or transmissible. A barrier, a mask, etc. So again, hospitals have dealt with this kind of stuff. That's what hospitals do. And so I would say everything that has been said before me is spot on.
All right. So any other questions? Let me, I'm going to pick on Emilda. I know you like to talk to when we pressure you.
When we pressure you. Let's get some pressuring going, right? Let's make a diamond.
He's answered pretty much everything. I mean, I wrote down something about a Boston video. If you could share that with us. You said something about it was a funny video. So that, and then any tips on the interview? It seems like you had it really easy and pretty much made, but any tips on like how to prepare yourself if you get anxiety, if you get how to reply when they ask you something that you're not prepared for and you're like, I don't want to, look so frantic, but any tips on how I could better myself when I get to that point, hopefully.
Sure. Yeah, you will. See, there you go. You got to apply the positive thinking now when you get to that point, not if, because that is the path that you're on. In terms of anxiety at any point, you're preparing for the exam, you're preparing for an interview, make time for a break before it starts, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes to just not think about what you're about to walk into. If you're going into the interview, take 5 to 10 minutes in your car, silence or quiet music, whatever it is, just breathe. Think about the opportunity you're being given, the luck you have to be there in that position, how many people would like to be in your position to get an interview, to all the effort that you've put forward to get where you are today. Calm yourself down as much as you can. Just breathe. For any action, any thought process, you need oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, you cannot live. Okay, so everything begins with a thought, and that ability to think comes from breath. Calm yourself down. Take 5 to 10 minutes to just focus. That was a tip that was first. I mean, we think about it, it's like, yeah, calm down, I get it. But the first time I actually had that verbalized was from Mr. Croto, actually, who said, before you go, and he's like, I know you feel you're ready, I know you're good, and you seem really confident, but just make sure you take some time before you go in and just breathe. Take 5 to 10 minutes and just relax. You got this. And talk to yourself like that. Give yourself a little mental pep talk, or if you're alone, so you don't look like a crazy person, say it out loud. Go talk to yourself in the mirror and just say, you got this. You studied for this. You prepared for this. You may not remember every single answer, but it's in there, it's in your head. And when you're presented with that question that where, let's say it's a conflict one, that one's probably the most difficult one for me, because it's asking about your character, how you handled something. And we always want to put our best foot forward and show everyone that we're just the perfect employee. We're the perfect candidate. You're never going to have a problem with me. They might. I mean, who knows? We don't know. Everyone's different. So, but the most important thing that they want to know is that you followed things professionally, you followed policy, and you did everything in a manner that did not cause a stir up. You're not there to make waves. You're not there to cause problems. If problems arise, you're there as a problem solver. If someone came to you and you're the problem, then you took the necessary steps to address it and you solved that problem or you resolved it with your manager. They want to, so what did I just convey? I conveyed professionalism. I conveyed that I followed the company's policies, and then also that I worked with the manager. So they want to know that they can work with you, teamwork, right? They want to know that you're a good person, you are ethical in your work, especially when it comes to working in sterile processing. I mean, we have to be ethical. I drop an instrument, nobody's looking. Are you going to do the right thing? Or, hey, nobody saw me, like, whatever, I just wipe it down, it's fine, and put it back. They need to know that without them constantly, looking at you, and they're not always going to have their eyes on you, that you're going to do the right thing. So ethical in that way. And then that if a problem arises with you, what are you going to do? Are you going to work with your manager, or are you just going to be a big troublemaker in the department? I'm not getting this. I wanted that day off. I'm not getting that day off. Well, I'm just going to do some low level work today. I'm just going to do my minimum and get out. So they're going to try and assess way too much about you in all of 15 minutes, so it's important to give them an ideal about you, but don't lie, in the sense that be honest with yourself. This should be what you want to be. If you don't want to be here, if you don't want to do the field, if you don't want to do this work, they're going to be able to tell. You're not the first person they've interviewed, right? So, and that also is kind of nerve-wracking. There's like, oh no, they probably seen people better than me. Don't worry about that, because you're going to be great someday. You're going to know everything someday. Explain that you are willing to learn. You're wanting, your desire to learn, even though you don't know as much as their lead tech. What I don't know, I'm ready to learn. I'm a quick learner. I'm a very fast learner. I'm always ready to learn something new. They want to hear that excitement, that enjoyment from you, that you're passionate about this. Because if you say, oh yeah, I got it, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Confidence is one thing, but you don't want to be overconfident to the point where they're like, oh, there's no way we can teach her anything. She's just a know-it-all. You know what I mean? So there's a bit of a balance that you have to strike there with yourself, but be confident. Understand that they want to know, what do you know now? Not, do you know how to run the department? Or go out there and show me. They're not going to put you in some ridiculous situation like that. They're going to ask you about you, what you know, and your current experience level. They want to know if they can take you from here to there. Does that make sense? Okay.
One of the
Did I
things,
answer the question? I think I did.
just to add to what Raj was saying, and is that during the interview, you're going to come across a question that you don't necessarily know how to answer, but that's a test in itself to say, okay, even though I don't know the actual answer to that, can I give them an answer to show them that even though I don't know the answer, I know how to find the answer. So it's okay during an interview that if they ask you something, to say, you know what, I don't know, but this is the thought process that I would go through in order to find that answer. I would go to my lead. I would go to my manager and ask straight up, how do I do this? Or what are the steps? I would go to the manufacturer's instructions for use. I would look at the AMI standard, because it might be a standard question as opposed to a technical question. So, and then at the end, then you can say, so with that, knowing that, I'm really curious, what is the answer to that question, and turn it back on them. So because sometimes you'll come across some where a manager might ask you a question because they heard it sometime and they may not know the answer themselves. So it's kind of a testimony to see, well, let's see how quickly they can think on their feet. They're testing me how quick I can think, but you got to do it from a knowledge base, saying, I'm really curious, how would you handle that situation, or how would you answer that question, after you give them the scenario of, you know what, even though I don't know the answer to that question, I know how to find and do research, and because I'm teachable and stuff. Raj hit it on the thing. You have to be excited about the field. You have to show that you're teachable. I've had a choice between a technician to hire that had 10 years of experience versus a brand new person that came to me that they had just completed school, and they didn't go to my come to CSS. They went to some other school. They had their 400 hours and they were certified, and they applied. And I ended up hiring the new person as opposed to somebody with 10 years, because the person with 10 years showed me the attitude that they knew it all and they weren't teachable, which meant that, and based on some of my questions, because I have certain trick questions when I come across somebody like that, where I give them a scenario and I'll describe a process, and I tell them, I'm going to describe something and let me know if I'm basically right, and so I'll go through and I'll throw in a couple things that I know for a fact that are wrong, and that a new student, and I've had new students that I've interviewed where they go, wait a minute, no. And they spoke up and they said, no, what are you talking about? And the fact that they couldn't even articulate why I was wrong, the fact that they knew I was wrong, they stopped me. And I'm like, that's the person I want. Don't just take me at face value what I tell you, because it may be wrong. And that 10-year employee from some other facility, I didn't hire that person because they weren't teachable anymore. They were too hard set in that I know what I'm doing and you want to hire me. Even when I go on an interview, I always explain to the new employer that, yes, I come with a lot of knowledge, but there is so much to know in sterile processing that no one person can know it all. But I have resources that I go to be able to learn the things that I don't know. So they know that I'm constantly learning too. After 33 years, there's things that in talking with Raj on one-on-one, that I'm like, wow, I learned something. Raj has mentioned several times Ken Croto, who is our educational specialist, our tutor at the school, that I talk to Ken, and I guarantee you, every time I talk to Ken, I'm learning something new. And this guy's only been in the field for 3 years, and I've been in it for 33 years. How is it that he's teaching me something? Well, I don't have that attitude. I enjoy talking to him because it's like, I get to talk to him. I know I'm going to learn something new today that I didn't know, even if it's just a little thing. So again, going back to Raj saying, show that you are teachable and that you're excited about this field. Angela, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was just going to let Imelda know that under the first section of our interview preparation boot camp, that first video is the Boston video that was referenced by Raj. And secondly, to all the ladies, one way that we can all take the stress off of ourselves, which I plan to do now that I know where my testing site will be, I'm going to do a dry run. I don't want to be the day of the test stressing on how to get there. We have to be there 30 minutes prior to our actual time. And that's not the time. Driving is not the time to have to add that additional stress of traffic and which way am I going and what floor was it again? So yes.
Good point, Angela. Good point. Going back to what Raj and Harry was just talking about, I'm reminded of a great hip hop philosopher who once said, sit down and be humble. The great Kendrick Lamar. And I would say in these interviewing scenarios, you want to do exactly that. You want to come across as having the knowledge that you're supposed to have. Any manager will tell you you're not and shouldn't be expected to answer every single question that comes at you. Sometimes it's a test. Sometimes, okay, let me see if this guy will really push it. Again, none of you are going to be interviewing for positions where we're looking for a lead. None of you are going to be interviewing for positions where we're looking for an educator, right? So the hiring manager understands to some degree what your level of knowledge should be. I'm not going to tell you to stick in a box, but we know when you're pressing, right? So if something comes up and you really don't understand it or you don't remember that particular concept, as Harry mentioned, talk about the resources that you have. Well, you know what? I don't recall that particular concept right now, but I'm always in my manual. And I have a copy of the Isham standards. I know how to research and find what I'm looking for. So, you know, having that humility, being humble in these scenarios, I think really goes a long way.
I was going to mention, because Angela mentioned going there. I often do that too. There was a couple other tests where I had to, I was like, it's over there. I was like, I know where it is, but I want to go there and just like, okay, that's where it is. So I know how much time it takes to get there. What's the traffic like that day? Also, what I did, because I just didn't want to deal with driving there, I did an Uber. So I was like, I ended up there about an hour or hour and a half early. And I thought I was early. I took my book with me. Not a great idea, because I'm a fan of relaxing on the last day before, because what are you going to learn in the last 24 hours before? If you haven't been preparing all before that, then, you know, for lack of a better word, you're kind of screwed. Like you can't learn the whole book in 24 hours, what you need to know. So, but I took the book with me, of course, because I was a little bit of a nervous wreck, even though I felt confident. I took it with me and I was like, oh, I'll just skim through it, something to do, light reading, right? Nobody light reads this book. Don't do it. I took it with me and I got there. It opened up at 7. My test wasn't until 8. And I walked in. I was like, oh, okay, is this where I take the test? And like, yeah, are you ready? I was like, what? So I didn't know they were willing for me to start at that time. They didn't have a previous time slot and early. So they were asking if I was going to take it. And I was like, no, I'll be back. So I left and I took a breather, 15 minutes or so. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting to take it right now. But after about 15, I ended up taking it like a half an hour, 40 minutes early anyway. So that just worked out that way. And I got home earlier, got a second breakfast because my anxiety must have burned through all the calories. But yeah, going there early, 15 minutes is the minimum. You must be there 15 minutes early, because I think there's like they show you how to take the test. This is how you fill in the bubbles. This is the pages and tabs and stuff. Don't expect
There's
much
the
from the
security
screen.
process as well. They
Yeah,
will wand you. They will have you pull your pockets out.
yeah.
They'll look, if you wear glasses, they'll say, please take your glasses off. I had to go like this and show it to them to make sure that they knew I didn't have a camera.
Yeah, technology is pretty advanced nowadays to have all that kind of stuff. They give you a locker to put phone and any other items you want in there. So if you do go without your car, don't worry about where do I stash the stuff. Your purse, everything can go. I'm not assuming because you're female that you carry a purse or anything. I'm just saying wallet, man purse, MERS, exactly. There you go. Or backpack, whatever you want to take with you. They have a little locker. Don't bring a suitcase with you. You can shove it all in there. And they'll give you a key to keep with you. And yeah, when you go in, the test is a very bland screen. I think it's 2 tones. Even when you pass, don't expect fanfare, don't expect balloons. At the end, they make you do a survey first before telling you your results. That was annoying to the nth degree. I was just like, yeah, okay, yeah, it was great. The site was amazing. The test was great. And I'm trying to get through it. Finally, it finished, and then it said, you passed. That's it. That's all you get. You get that, you get something in the mail, but that's it. Nobody's gonna pat you on the back or shake your hand on the way out. Great job. No. So it's a very bland exam, 2 tones. At the end, you passed. That's it. But yeah, definitely go early. And if you don't want the stress of driving, take an Uber, splurge a little, and go there without any worry about how am I going to get through traffic. You get your estimates on your phone and everything when you're going to get there and stuff. That was something that I did.
Yeah, I have a history of always going an hour and a half early. I show up if my appointment's at 10 o'clock, I'm there at 8:30 at the latest. And the reason being is to give at least an hour time. Some people like to pray, some like to meditate, some like to put on soft music, orchestra, gospel, whatever your thing is. What you should be doing is calling to the universe, whatever it is your thing is, whether it's praying or meditating, is just concentrating of keeping yourself calm and centered before you walk in, because the nerves can tear you apart if you let it. So if you're showing up just when you're supposed to, you're going to, trust me, you will be stressed out, because it's like, oh my God, I'm just barely, because know this, if they say that you need to check in 15 minutes before, you need to check in 15 minutes before. If your appointment's scheduled for 10 and you show up at 10, they're going to say, I'm sorry, you're going to have to retake the exam at a later date. The reason being is they have their security protocols in which they go through. They make sure you remove all your personal effects. The only thing you can walk into that room with is a copy of your driver's license or ID. And then the key that they give you for your locker where you put all your personal effects and stuff. So, but they're going to have you take the time and getting rid of all that stuff, put it in the locker. Then they have to go through. And again, they're going to use a security wand to check to make sure you don't have any electronics on you, to make sure that, it's like a metal detector, but it's more than that. It's a metal detector plus electronics scanner. It's checking to make sure that you don't have any recording devices with you, anything that you can transmit. They'll check your ears to make sure, unless you wear hearing aids, but if you have that looks like an earbud, they're going to ask you, do you need that in order to take the exam? Because there's no talking inside. So can you please remove that? Because they don't know if that is actually a communication device that you're talking to somebody and they're giving you the answer, or even if it's one way, that you're talking in order to get the questions out of that room to somebody else to help somebody else cheat later on down the line. Prometrics it's almost like going to Fort Knox. All right. So at this time, Raj, did you have any last words that you wanted to share?
My last words, geez.
Last
It was so well,
We'll be back.
pardon
No,
me.
I'm sorry. That's a pretty inside joke for me and Pernell.
Two more things I just thought of when you reminded me. You are given paper and pencil that they take away from you, so you can't write down notes and stuff and then take them with you to help your friends out or whatever. I used it to just take a tally of like, oh, I'm confident about my answer with that one. Okay, yeah, I did. I was confident, and eventually, like, I counted at the end. I was like, okay, yeah, I did pretty good. The other thing that was at least the site I was at, was earmuffs. I loved that they had those earmuffs. I felt like I was inside my head when I had them on, and it was so relaxing to have it on. So if you do get a site that has earmuffs, I recommend using them because it really helped. Unless you don't like being in your head, I don't know. Depends on you. I like it. Last
Very
words.
Any last minute things?
Yeah, I was gonna say last words. It was nice knowing everybody. I'm excited every day. I'm trying to learn something new, where I am, where I'm going, keeping an eye on the next step. But like I said, pacing myself, enjoying where I'm at, enjoying the fruits of my labor where I'm at, and getting to know the people I work with, asking them what are their experiences, what have they gone through, How long have they been working on the job? What's some weird stuff you've had? Whenever calls come in from surgeons and stuff, I ask like, oh, can I come with you guys on that? Can I go do that? Can I, so be a sponge. As much as you already know, as much as you go through with all this and finish the exam, understand that when you get to the workplace, everyone there is above you. Everyone there knows more than you. As lazy as they seem, as complacent as they seem in their workplace, they know more than you. Just assume that and learn whatever you can from everybody. Take some time to meet and know everybody and try to learn as much as you can. And people will take notice. People will notice that, hey, that guy's really friendly, or that girl seems to ask a lot of questions. Oh, I'd like to get to know her. I mean, the long and short of it is that, but I mean, also make friends. I mean, be friendly with people. And while the manager, I don't like being too friendly with management, but you got to remember the manager is not your friend. So be careful how close you get with certain people higher up. But at the same time, obviously be friendly, be open and honest with them. If something is not going right in your clinical or in your workplace, ask questions, say that, this isn't what I learned. Is this still acceptable, the way we do this? And they're going to remember you. They're going to take note of like, hey, that's a good question. I'm going to find out. Hey, if you notice anything else, let me know. They're going to want to come to you in the future. So you want to be a source of knowledge. You want to be someone who they trust, someone who they know they can come to when they have a problem or they need eyes, not necessarily be a rat or a spy, but in a good way that protects them and their department for patient safety, for patient safety, protecting the instruments from damage, and instrument availability. I try to remind myself of those three. Those are the three main things. But I think that's all the knowledge I have that I can dispense to you guys. I hope it helped. If you guys, like I said, Mr. Mullen has the information on the band app and stuff. And that link, I think it was Imelda who asked for that Boston video, is in the chat now. I think Mr. Mullen posted it.
Yes. It's on the Refactored website as well as in the chat box as well. Raj, I want to take this time to thank you for coming on, and because I know you had well, you still got a few hours before you have to go to work. I know you work in the afternoon, but thank you so much. And you know what? Raj was one of my students that I never actually, this is the first time I'm actually able to see him and see what he looks like. I've talked to him over the phone. He actually did the course via the Complete Online Independent. And so he knew me through the videos on the website, and periodically would reach out and talk to me. But it's good to put a face with the sound of a voice and name. But thank you.
Wow,
You're very
that's
welcome.
really unusual. What I was thinking was, I thought he was one of the candidates who, to replace your spot when you retire, Harvey.
Oh, he just did. Well, believe it or not,
you see the mic setup, everything. I thought he was a candidate.
Well, believe it or not, I've already talked to him about the potential once he's got a certain level of experience in the field to come on as a tutor to help other students and stuff. And so at this time he's declined, because I said, hey, what's the possibility? He's the one who told us, well, let me get my feet wet. Let me get a little bit more hands-on knowledge and stuff. But he's already doing, like I said, he has the tutoring group that he's helping other students currently, because he has this passion, for this field already, and it's fantastic. I've already told him I see big things in his future because of the type of personality that he has and stuff. I know that whether he takes over my position someday, or maybe perhaps says, you know what, no, I can start my own school and do it better. And there's nothing wrong with competition out there. So it's, but just know that once you become a competitor there, Raj, I'm not nice anymore.
If something like that should happen, it would only be with your blessings, sir, not against your wishes.
So again, thank you very much. And there's another student, by the way, everyone, that I'm going to put on the spot right now who just logged in. I think it was about 20 minutes to a half hour ago. Diamond, how you doing, Diamond? give you an opportunity.
Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry I was late. I'm dealing with my 2-year-old now. He's been waking me up like 6 in the morning every day. I don't know what's going on. So I gotta get him together so I can get back on schedule.
Well, I'll give you a little tool to tell you a little tool to take care of that. Duct tape. No.
I need something because I mean he gets up at 6 and I don't know what's going on, but once he's up, he's not going to sleep until about 8:30 or 7:30. And I'm like, oh my gosh, gotta deal with a baby.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, in Home Alone, I think Macaulay Culkin was duct taped to the door or something like that. Yeah, at one point. So I think that works. But anyways,
man.
Diamond, I wanted to pick on you because you had mentioned in the band app that is it Parkland or that
Parkland,
you got a
yes.
job?
Yes, I did. Yes, and I started on the 23rd.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So what position did you go for?
So I did go for the EVS. It's just something to help me. I never worked at a hospital setting. And the lady, she pretty much understood exactly what I was saying. She was telling me that if I do it for 6 months, you know, she's willing to push forth to help me get somewhere else within the departments at Parkland. And I told her that's great, you know, something that's going to help me understand more medical terminologies. And that's kind of what I needed, you know, because I never worked in a healthcare facility or setting before. And I did let her know that I was going for my certification and it's on its way and things like that. She was just congratulating me the whole time. Like she was so understanding and helpful. Like I never had somebody so much understanding. Like it was crazy, but she was really helpful to me and she's willing to help me move forward to wherever department I need to be placed in.
Well, that, you know, I got to tell you, housekeeping, EBS, what a lot of environmental services is what, you know, the hospitals will call that department, is a great way to get your foot in the door at a facility, especially if you have a facility that does not have a current opening for sterile processing, but you can at least, like you said, get your foot in the door. And the nice thing is that the stuff that you learned in the chapters about disinfection and stuff like that, you're still going to be putting to use in housekeeping, because housekeeping is almost an extension of sterile processing. You go into patient rooms, you'll probably go into the operating room and do high level disinfection, what they call terminal cleaning of a room. And so I think it's going to be a good experience for you to get used to and get to know the staff, because you'll learn people, know people in sterile processing, the operating room, up on the floors and stuff. And so congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Congratulations.
You want cereal? Okay, hold on. Thank you so much.
Go get that cereal.
Yeah, I know my daughter, she's coming in now.
Good job.
Thank you.
All
So
right.
Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. What a session, right? Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much. It was very inspiring, uplifting, very practical. And sorry to hear that you won't be able to make it for the second cohort in the afternoon. I know it's going to be a great mess for them, but we will definitely save this record and we will play it for that class. And I don't know, maybe sometime when you have a chance, if you made it to another morning session, we will tell them to come and, you know, have this face-to-face time with you. But it was a great session. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Like I said, I hope it helped whoever.
Yes, it does.
All the questions, I hope I answered them well enough. The next time I have a day off or I'm available in the afternoon, I'll let Mr. Mullen know. I'm not sure when you guys have, what days you have the afternoon session, but
usually it's Wednesdays and Fridays afternoon.
Okay, Wednesdays and Fridays. Okay, I'll keep that in mind, and
Okay.
I'll keep in contact with Mr. Mullen about that. But yeah, you guys are very welcome. You know, I'm happy to help anyone who needed help.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love your spirit. I love your positive. You can just, you know, transfer that easy, positive vibe to each one of us. And you are a great communicator. You know your stuff very well. You don't really seem fairly new to this industry. You're even more confident than Mr. Harry. I hope he didn't hear that.
Well, he did.
Yeah,
You
so
know what?
it's
I decided that because Juliet is always saying "Wow," because I react so quickly, and well, we'll just wait until I come to Texas. Michael, you and I will go to a bar, have a few drinks. I'll spike your drink a little bit, and then I'll say, "Hey, let's go outside and party."
Raj, we love Mr. Harry. I mean, you're one of the reason that he is the reason that you are here. So we love messing with him. Thank you so much. It was very, very insightful. And class, I
all the
believe
nice
you
things
have.
you guys have been saying. Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you. Not only you're welcome, but you guys are all very nice. And Mr. Mullen, and this is the first time actually talking to Mr. Husband and yourself. But yeah, so far I've received nothing but support from everyone, and including Mr. Croto. Going through this, they've been very supportive, very motivational, and thank you for all of it. It's very, very helpful. And I always will remember this going forward.
Okay, real quick. And Zara, you said you had a question?
Yes, after the filling the application and send it, I get the exam day.
What's going to happen is the application is sent into Isham. Isham will be sending you an email.
Mhm.
In that email will be a link for you to schedule your exam yourself. So you'll be able to, it'll take you to their website. You'll click on their calendar to say, well, for this exam, it shows that August 16th is available. So you can click on that day, then it'll tell you the times that are available for the time sessions that are available for that day. And if none of those times work for you, you hit the back button, go back and choose another day until you find something where the day and time works for you. Also,
Yes.
in that email is going to be the authorization code that they give you, because when you actually go in and say, okay, I want this date, it's going to ask you for what is the authorization code allowing you to take the exam. And so that'll be in that same email. Also note that that authorization code, you don't want to delete the email afterwards when you're done. You want to make sure you save it, at least that authorization code. Make sure you put that either in your cell phone, write it on a piece of paper, put it in your purse or wallet or MERS, and the reason being is that authorization code is also your membership number for Isham for life. So whenever you take let's say you go for another certification exam, that's the same authorization code they're going to give you for future exams once you're eligible and stuff. So that number is everything. When you call them and say, well, I have a question about my points, my CEs, they're going to say, okay, they're not going to ask you your name. They're going to ask you, what is your membership number? You give them the membership number, and then they will verify your name because the membership number or that authorization number is everything when it comes to Isham.
Yes.
You have any other questions there, Zara?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Harry. So I have 2 or 3 quick announcements. First thing, expect surveys to come. You remember we talked about 2 surveys. The first survey is about where you want to work. So that survey will come out sometime this week. So you will have a chance to pick where you want to work. Even that survey even includes Miss Diamond. So if you had that chance, you can just even pick Dallas. So it will give you a chance to pick every state, different counties. So pick where you want to work, because now we are aggressively working toward placement, and we are in discussion with employers. So we want to have that data. We want to see where we need to focus on, inviting employers. And we are also working toward hiring events. So we really need that data. So complete that survey. The second survey will be regarding your VR lab. So you will have, that's basically for us as a data, but as also for the company, Glitchy, who provided that Oculus devices. So please complete those as your earliest convenience so that we can, be done with that one. And the other thing is, I sent out another email regarding your Isham application. I have received 2 so far. So respond to that email whenever you get a chance, whenever you get some type of communication from Isham. So we want to, we want to do the follow-up, when is your test schedule, which location, then, the date. That way we can also, we will work on the placement, based on your certification. So that's why we need that information. Other than that, I don't have anything, and we don't have much time to, to start talking about anything. This has been a great session. He was very down to earth, very helpful. So anyone, any question, anything that needs explanation? All right, Mr. Harry and Pernell, do you have anything to add? Other than that, we can end the session.
Well, just to, I had a question in the chat, private message in the chat box. So just let everybody know that my email address, if you have your resume done and you want to forward it to me for me to just take a quick look at it, then I'd be happy to do so. My email address is in the chat box. Remember, Harry Mullen at centralsterilizationsolutions.com. I wanted to also, again, thank Raj. I know I'll talk to you on the side, Raj, as far as the times for the class for Wednesday to see if you're available. If not, we're looking at somebody else who's a past student of Purnell's, who is actually probably to give you a different insight. She's actually made it all the way up to a manager in a very short period of time with Purnell's help. And so we're trying to see if she'll is available to come on to talk to you all, because she can talk to you from the perspective of coming from one industry. She was actually an OR technician that she transitioned to sterile processing and then became a lead and became a supervisor and now is managing a department and stuff. So in a very short period of time. So we wanted to give everybody that opportunity to see that, because it can happen. Raj again has talked about Ken Croto, our educational specialist / tutor. And, he had 0 experience. His business for 30 years was fish and tackle. He had a warehouse that he owned, dealing with supplies and shipping out to other stores, the supplies that they needed to sell. And he sold his business and decided, well, I want to do something meaningful. And he did his research, got into sterile processing. And after graduating, within 18 months of starting the job, they promoted him to a supervisor position. And that was going in just certified with 0 experience. And within 18 months, because again, he's very passionate about the field. And that's available to any of you if you have the drive. I had one student that actually went into a leadership role, more like a clinical coordinator, but was able to make it within 6 months after going into the field. And, and it's, it's not about everything, it's the fact that, people, if you know how to research and if you have the resources, and you have Purnell and myself as a resource, so then you're more than welcome to reach out to us, and we help our students who, trust me, even after all of this studying is over with, the refactored class is over and you're working, we are still available to you. You have the band app you're going to be able to reach out to us on. So we're not going anywhere. We're dedicated to your success. And one last thing to say, I know that Michael, is tongue in cheek was saying, oh, because he's got Raj has got the microphone, he's going to take over your spot and everything. But know this, that Purnell and I, actually, the way our goal is we want to see our students exceed what we've been able to accomplish. It's nice if you're able to get to our point, but we really want to see you exceed. We want you to do better than us. We want you to make more money than us. Not to say that we're happy with what the amount of income we have, but no, we know that when we see a student that has exceeded our expectations and has exceeded what we've been able to do, that's a feather in our cap. That to us, even we find when we know that we had some small part to play in that, and it's a prideful thing, you know. And I know that some cultures, pride is a bad thing. But when it comes to this, I think pride is a very good. I'm happy to be proud of my students, to know that they've done better than me. Put it this way: if any of you within the first 10 years of going into sterile processing make it into management within that 10 years, you've exceeded me. It took me 20 years to get into management. All right, so you know, so probably because I didn't know the proper.
That's only because you didn't want to get into management at that time.
So, but you know, it's you know, we're excited about you excelling and exceeding in this field, absolutely, and stuff.
Diamond.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Purnell. Yeah. I'm going to turn it back over. I'm going to say I'm turning it back over to Purnell to close out, and to Michael for you to close out. I have to, in 1 minute, have to be on a call. I have a student here in Southern California that's getting ready for a job interview, so I'm going to do my prep with that young lady and stuff. So everybody, I'll see you in the next session. God bless. Remember, stay safe. Wash your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Hari. Thank you so much.
All right.
Go ahead, Purnell.
Well, no, I just wanted again to thank Raj for coming on and for sharing his experiences with us. We are fully appreciative of that. And again, to the rest of you, again, we still have work to do. We're getting that work done day in and day out, but let's stay the course. Those flashcards and the other resources that you have for studying, let's get across that finish line because, you know, that is the goal. That's all I have, Michael.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Purnell. Thank you, everyone, for attending this class. This thing is getting better and better, right? So it's more becoming more tangible, and you're one step. Every class is, you know, pushing you one step closer to your goal, and we're here to help you in any way possible. So thank you so much for attending this class. We hope to see you next Wednesday. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out anyone in the team. Okay. All right. Have a good one. Thank you.